Okay. Hit it.
I'd like to call the November City Council to order. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to our country's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. A roll call, please.
Heidi.
Here.
Clinker.
Here.
Nargi.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Allersmeyer.
Here.
Williamson.
Here.
Downing.
Here.
Campbell.
Here.
Quorum present.
You have received the minutes of the October 4th and the October 19th meetings. Are there any corrections to those? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept them as,
So moved.
thank you. And a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The opposed, same sign. Thank you. Presentation and disposal of claims.
There are none.
Presentation of petitions and communications.
There are none.
Reports of the city offices.
Fleet Maintenance, monthly September. Waterworks Department, monthly September. Water Pollution Control Department, monthly September. And Police Department, monthly August.
Those reports are available in the clerk's office during business hours, except tomorrow and Friday. Thank you. And Thanksgiving Day.
The day after.
And the day after.
And Christmas Eve.
Yeah,
And
the day after,
Christmas-
yeah.
And New Year's Day.
Ordinances for first reading.
Ordinance 2016-36, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance Tippecanoe County, Indiana to rezone certain real estate from NB to R1B S southwest corner of Beck Lane and Poland Hill, Double Down Development LLC petitioner.
Brown?
Mr. President, I move that we hear and approve ordinance 2016-36 on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion by members of the Common Council prior to presentation by Mr. Teeter? There being none, Mr. Teeter.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, I'm Dan Teeter, attorney with Riley, Teeter, and Schreier. I represent the petitioner. As you've indicated, we're requesting a rezone from NB to R1B. This is a little over 2.5 acres on the southwest corner of Poland Hill and Beck. We've taken a little time to get here, but we're finally here. We appreciate your patience in that regard. We received a favorable staff report, unanimous yes vote from the Area Planning Commission as well. We've also filed a subdivision for 12 lots for this site that will be heard later this month at the Area Planning Commission. These 12 lots are similar to the lots in design and size of Cobblestone to the south of this. Cobblestone is probably 100%, but I'm going to say at least 95% completed at this point. So there's a need, in my opinion, for more lots, residential lots in this area of Lafayette. With that, we would respectfully request your approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions of Mr. Teeter? Thank you, Mr. Teeter.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Anybody in the audience wish to address this particular ordinance? There being no questions, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on the members of the committee?
Heidi.
Aye.
Clinker.
Aye.
Nargi.
Aye.
Reynolds.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Allersmeyer.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you staying, Mr. Teeter?
You all know the answer.
Got stuff to do.
Go ahead.
Because we stay, the clock doesn't keep running for the line.
Oh, wow.
Ouch.
Zing. Oh, wow.
We'll still let you go.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Appreciate this.
Ordinance 2016-37.
An ordinance to amend portions of Chapter 2.17, City of Lafayette Responsible Bidder Ordinance.
Mr. Downing?
I move to hear and approve ordinance 2016-37.
Mrs. Williamson? Mayor?
Mr. Campbell, ladies and gentlemen of the council, before you have the responsible bid ordinance that we passed several years ago. As you remember, at the time, we were looking at ways to continue to improve the standards in our community, make sure that our taxpayers were receiving a good value. As you know, we do lots of projects in this community, anything from water and sewer to road projects and numerous others. And we felt that having the responsible bidders ordinance was a good way to help ensure that we were getting quality products at the very best dollar, and to make sure that we were using good local labor whenever possible, which we all know is good for our local economy and certainly good for our community. What you have before you in front tonight is an amendment to that, some updates. After speaking with some folks in the community and the city attorney and myself and some others looking through this, we felt there were some ways that we could strengthen this ordinance, and we want to continue to do that, like all of our processes that we have in the city, continue to evaluate those in a way that making sure, again, getting the best projects for the best dollar, using local labor when we can, ensuring that our standards are met. So at the end of the day, we can tell our taxpayers that we are managing their money in the very best way possible. And I think these amendments to this ordinance help us achieve that. So Mr. Chosnick is going to take just a minute or two to go through some of the specific changes with you. And when that's done, if you'd have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions of the mayor? There being none, Mr. Chosnick.
As the mayor indicated, the responsible bidder ordinance we adopted has been in effect for nearly 6 years, and we've had an opportunity to see some of the things that we could use to tighten up some of the standards when we examine bids. And what we've added to the ordinance are, it's now going to require records from the Secretary of State showing that a business is in good standing. We had one instance where somebody claimed to be a business, but they really weren't a formal business. They're more of a doing business as, and so that was one of the issues. It's expanding the information that they provide us in their bid packet regarding their drug testing program for their employees. It strengthens the certified payroll requirements so that it requires them to include the job title and craft of each employee. And if they don't provide certified payrolls, it allows us to withhold payment until they do. And then we've had some of them that have turned out that they've been behind. They've had some federal tax liens, some state tax liens that indicates some financial concerns. And so we've added that as a category for the city to determine whether they're a responsible bidder if they've had some tax liens and some federal, state, or even local tax liens. Those are the primary changes to tighten the ordinance up a little bit. And as the mayor indicated, we think we'll continue to look at it as we see issues that might arise in the future.
Any questions of Mr. Chosnick? There being none, anyone in the audience wish to address this particular ordinance? No questions, and would the clerk conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-37?
Heidi,
Aye.
Clinker,
Aye.
Nargi,
Aye.
Reynolds,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Allersmeyer.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank you. Ordinance 2016-38.
An ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance Tippecanoe County, Indiana, Uzo Amendment Number 87, Form-Based Code, New Chapter 7.
What's the pleasure of the council? Mr. Heidi?
I move to hear ordinance number 2016-38.
Mr. Clinker?
Second.
Mrs. Fahey?
Good evening. I know that you've had a briefing about this, but I'd like to give you a little bit of an overview, and then I'd be happy to entertain any questions. First of all, I'd like you to know that form-based code is pretty cutting edge in the zoning world. There are form-based codes and overlays in other communities around the country, but the only other one in Indiana is the town of Fishers. We looked at lots and lots of examples of form-based codes around the country, and I would like to publicly acknowledge the assistance that we got from the city of Denver. If you notice in the appendix, there are lots of illustrative drawings and plats. The city of Denver allowed us to use those drawings that they had prepared that were applicable, that we thought were applicable to our ordinance, and we acknowledge that they are their property and we are using them with their permission. So it was quite helpful and cost-effective not to have to reproduce our own illustrative drawings. We've worked on this ordinance for over a year, hand in glove with your staff initially, and for the general process part with the staff in the city of West Lafayette. Then when we got into the particulars for Historic Centennial Neighborhood, which is the first neighborhood where this is being proposed, we worked extensively with those residents and property owners. In addition, we asked the local land use attorneys and architectural firms to review it. Kelly Good Architects actually took some sample cases and applied this to it so they could help us see if there were any glitches that needed to be ironed out. That led to then numerous meetings with the Plan Commission's Ordinance Committee and lots of public hearings. So it has been well vetted, and by the time it got to the Plan Commission, there were no objectors, and many of the historic Centennial neighbors came out to speak in favor. So the amendment itself has, it has 3 sections, but I would consider it to be 4 parts. Section 1 adds in definitions that are specific to the form-based overlay. Section 2 adds an entire new Chapter 7 to the zoning ordinance. The first part of that is the procedural part, which would apply everywhere there ends up being a form-based overlay. The second part of new Chapter 7 is specific to Historic Centennial. If this is adopted by all jurisdictions, then the next place we will move into would be New Chauncey neighborhood, and that would be the third part of Chapter 7. Then the last part is an Appendix J, where some of these illustrative forms, that's how it got its name, forms for building are illustrated. There was, at the last minute, a concern on the part of the neighbors of Historic Centennial that maybe we had reduced parking too much in some of the sectors of the overlay. So on the day of the Plan Commission meeting, we reached a compromise as to how to fix that so that they were satisfied, and we were satisfied that we weren't creating too much parking in a transit-rich neighborhood where we're trying to promote walking and transit. So that amendment, which keeps the parking of the underlying zoning district the same in 3 of those residential sectors, particularly the ones that are mostly single-family homes and 2-family homes. That amendment that occurred at the Plan Commission is included already in the amendment that you are acting on this evening. So that's sort of the overview. I'll be happy to answer any specific questions you have about how this might work. And the last thing I will say is that we envision that this will be a tool that would be beneficial to some of our oldest urban neighborhoods. It doesn't mean that somebody couldn't continue to do a planned development if that was appropriate for the property, but we think that this will allow development and redevelopment by right without people specifically having to do a planned development.
Thank you, Ms. Fahey. Any questions by members of the Common Council?
So that's the major reason, not having to do a plan development. This sort of takes care of a lot of that, and is it time saving? Is that one of the main reasons?
Yes, it would be time saving, it would be more cost effective.
More
but
cost effective, more time
The
saving?
primary reason, however, is to give older urban neighborhoods another tool to implement their land use plan, neighborhood plan that preceded this ordinance and that you folks adopted about 2 years ago.
Okay.
It's a way to implement their long-term vision for their neighborhood.
Now, as we look at this, what, a year from now, we say, oh, we should have included this, or maybe this wasn't good, about amending this. What's that process?
Well, actually, Ryan O'Gara and I talked about this today because we've already found a couple things, and your staff has found a couple things. When we move into New Chauncey, we will be amending this again to add the requirements for the New Chauncey neighborhood, and we can go back and amend anything for Centennial or any procedural aspects. So I would say in the next 6 months to a year, we'll have that opportunity to see what revisions might need to be made.
And this will be brought before us at that time?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, any amendment to the zoning ordinance ultimately comes to you.
That's all I need to know.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mrs. Fahey. Members of the audience wish to address this particular.
Hello, my name's Elizabeth Mork. I live at 644 North 7th Street, and I also own 657 North 7th Street. And I've been to a lot of the meetings this summer about the form-based code. We've been working with Ryan and staff at the APC, and I really do believe that they have addressed most of the neighborhood's concerns. We had some concerns about building garages, also some concerns about parking. So as a resident of Centennial Neighborhood, we do support this, and we hope that you'll pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mark.
Ken McCammon, 613 Perrin Avenue, but president of Historic Centennial Neighborhood Association and the Centennial Neighbors Investment Group. And I hope that the members of the council received my email today indicating that all members of both groups are in full support of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments by members of the audience? There being none, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-38?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Ms. Fahey, you may be excused. Ordinance 2016-39.
An ordinance to amend ordinance 2015-26, an ordinance fixing the salaries of poll of the city of Lafayette, Indiana for the year 2016.
I move we hear ordinance 2016-39.
Second.
Second. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the council, before you we have an ordinance to amend the salary ordinance for this year. As you know, we negotiated a new contract with the members of the Fraternal Order of Police, and some of the changes that we made in regards to specialty pay and technician pay, some of the other financial opportunities that our law enforcement officers will have, we did make that retroactive to this year since the negotiations took place during this calendar year, and we were able to get those finished up. I'm pleased to report that the negotiations went very well. There was a good exchange of information between those representing the police department through the Fraternal Order Police and my staff. And not only did I think we got a great 5-year contract, which is longer than we typically get, but I think we set out some very good processes for the future, and everybody was extremely happy once the negotiations were done. So this amendment here would allow us to go ahead and retroactively pay them for some of the changes that we made in this particular calendar year with their new contract.
Any questions of the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. Any comments by members of the audience? There being none, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on ordinance 2016-39?
Heidi,
Aye.
Clinker.
Aye.
Nargi.
Aye.
Reynolds.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Allersmeyer.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Ordinance passes 8-0.
Thank you. Resolutions, I'm sorry, holy cow, we're done.
Oh, yeah.
2016-19.
A resolution approving the 2017 Common Council calendar of meetings. And I can speak to this.
Can we
Oh,
put it
I'm
on
sorry.
the floor,
Okay,
please?
go ahead. I'm so excited. I never get to talk.
Not be excused either. Salzmeyer.
President, I move we hear and approve Resolution 2016-19.
Mr. Brown.
Second.
Thank you. Go.
Okay. This attached is the 2000 Common Council calendar meetings for the year. This has been vetted by the city attorney, the mayor, and our HR department to make sure it didn't coincide with any religious holidays and even national holidays. So, as some of the days, we've worked around those, so we just request your approval.
Anyone have any questions of the city clerk? Members of the audience wish to address the calendar. I think they stick pretty much to the first Monday or second of the month, except in situations like Labor Day and something like that. Okay, the clerk, please conduct a roll call vote on Resolution 2016-19.
Heidi.
Aye.
Clinker.
Aye.
Nargi.
Aye.
Reynolds.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Allersmeyer.
Aye.
Williamson.
Aye.
Downing.
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution 2016-20.
A resolution of the Common Council of the City of Lafayette, Indiana, authorizing the participation of said city in the motor fuel budgeting program of the Indiana Bond Bank for the year 2017 budget year. The execution of qualified entity reimbursement agreement in connection therewith and all related matters.
Ms. Williamson?
I hear we approve Resolution number 2016-20.
Mr. Downing?
I second.
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones?
Mr. President, council members, as I have done for the past 6 years, I've come asking for your approval to participate in the bond bank fuel hedge program. As I've mentioned in the past, this is actually a financial instrument versus an actual physical purchase hedge. And that means that we still bid and purchase our fuel from local vendors or selected vendors and negotiate all those details of those purchases. The methodology of the hedge has not changed since its inception. It allows the city to place between 50% and 80% of its estimated fuel usage into a pool with other smaller governmental units to, in effect, protect them, budget protect their fuel line. The bond bank, with a commodity consultant, determines a maximum and a minimum price called a collar. The city will take a, based on, and this is based on the NYMEX commodity averages. If the NYMEX average price goes above the ceiling, then the bond bank will pay the city whatever that difference between the ceiling and the actual price times the number of gallons that we have placed in the hedge. That will come back to us. Also, if it goes below the floor, the same thing happens, only we pay the bond bank. Anything in between, nothing happens. We do pay an administrative fee, though. That administrative fee for this year is 3.2 cents per gallon. Originally, 6 years ago, it was 6.5 cents. So I'm not sure how many governmental units are participating, but the number of gallons in the hedge has gone up because obviously the price has gone down. The commodity expert also advises the city at budget time what they think the NYMEX averages for this commodity will be throughout the year, and we typically budget above that. I have included a couple of graphs, both for diesel and for gas, the unleaded gas. The red line represents the ceiling. The blue line is the floor, and the green line, of course, is the price of the gas as it fluctuates throughout the years. And that's all 6 years, and you can see how that fuel hedge has worked for us. And typically, when we budget above the ceiling price, so that, again, we do not have to come back to you and say, I need to move money.
Any questions of Mr. Jones? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
Comments by members of the audience? There being none, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on Resolution 2016-20?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downey?
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Resolution 2016-21.
A resolution of the City Council of Lafayette, Indiana, establishing a materiality policy.
I move we hear Resolution 2016-21.
Second.
Any questions of Mr. Jones now that we know what was that word again?
Materiality.
Reality.
That was it. Materiality.
Materiality.
Good, now that you've cleared that one up. Go ahead.
Mr. President, council members, this resolution and actually the next one are being brought before you because the state legislature has sent a mandate that all local government units, adopt and put into city regulations materiality and internal control policies set forth in the IC code. Materiality it's just an accounting definition. It's a threshold above which missing or incorrect information has a material effect on the users of financial statements. The users can be inside the organization, such as yourself, management, or it can be outside the organization, such as bond rating companies, the IURC, what have you. And again, it's not a hard and fast rule. Materiality for General Motors will be much different than it is for the city of Lafayette. And materiality for the city of Lafayette will be much different than it is for a township. So what we do is we try to set this limit, and the idea is that we want to make sure that the information on the financial statements are correct and that we protect the integrity of the assets of the city.
Questions of Mr. Jones? Thank you. Members of the audience wish to address materiality. We're going to have a test on it tonight, and you cannot leave this building without passing that test.
Correctly.
I'm omitting myself. Would the clerk now conduct a roll call vote, please?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Brown? Allersmeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downey?
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Thank you. Resolution 2016-22.
A resolution adopting uniform internal control standards in accordance with IC 5-11-1-27.
Yes, sir.
I move to hear and approve Resolution 2016-22.
Mr. Planker.
Second.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, Mike Jones, Controller. Internal controls are the systematic measures that we guarantee that we don't violate the thresholds of materiality. That includes reviews and checks and balances. There can be a lot of different internal controls. Software certainly puts a lot of constraint on our folks so that we have methods to follow. I think I used the example, and I'm going to date myself, but when you used to go to the theater, you'd get a two-part ticket, and the cashier would drop a piece into their storage box, and then you'd go to the usher, and the usher would tear it in half and drop it into another storage box, and then that way management had tickets that they could compare and make sure that the transaction went through properly. And that's really what internal controls are. And there's a great many of them that could really bore you to death if we go through them all. But again, it's the measure by which we make sure that our statements are material.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions of Mr. Jones? Thank you. Any members of the audience wish to address these controls? There being none, would the clerk then conduct a roll call vote on Resolution 2016-22?
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Ollismeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Thank you. Resolution 2016-23.
A resolution approving the agreement between the City of Lafayette and the Lafayette Arm and Lodge Number 49 Fraternal Order of Police.
Mr. Heidi?
Move to hear Resolution 2016-23. Second.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Mr. Mayor?
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the council, again, as we discussed earlier, this is the formal contract with the Fraternal Order Police. It is a 5-year contract. You all have a copy of that. Again, we were very pleased with the way the negotiations went. There was a lot of good information, and I can tell you, for somebody that for 7 years sat on the other side of the negotiating table with the police department, it went very well, and I'm very pleased with this agreement. I think it's reflective of what we ask of our men and women to do in the Lafayette Police Department, and we worked to come up with the very best contract possible for a very, very difficult job. And we weren't able to do everything they asked for, but we certainly did as much as we could. And at the end of the day, it was very amicable, and everybody was pleased with the contract. And I spoke to the chief and some of the other members of the FOP, and they said it's been very well received throughout the rank and file of the entire department. So we're pleased, and we would appreciate your approval of this 5-year contract agreement with the Fraternal Order Police.
Any questions of the mayor? There being none, thank you, Mayor. Members of the audience wish to address this. I guess I would only ask, what's the status of the fire department with regard?
We did those a couple months ago.
So it's good, okay, thank you.
Approve that. We have one left to go with CLIA. Hopefully we'll wrap that up for the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Resolution 2016-23, roll call vote.
Heidi?
Aye.
Clinker?
Aye.
Nargi?
Aye.
Reynolds?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
Ollismeyer?
Aye.
Williamson?
Aye.
Downing?
Aye.
Resolution passes 8-0.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees. I don't know if we're a standing committee, but we will have a meeting on November the 22nd, 5:30, in this room to consider bricked streets. Don't worry about the other kind of streets. We're only being concerned with bricks. And that will be at 5:30 on November 22nd. And all are welcome. Reports of special committees. Being none, reports by the mayor. Miscellaneous and new business to come before the council. Reports of council, I guess we better call them council people. Is that better? Good. Council people. Okay?
I guess I should change that.
Yeah, you'll have to.
Yeah. Council members, I can make it members.
Yeah, we're going to be correct. Public comment. Once again, I'll remind everyone that it's a 3-minute limit, and it will be as civil as is determined by me. Well, yes, sir.
Earl Speakman, 923 South 22nd Street, Lafayette, Indiana.
Yes, sir.
And I ain't got nothing to read from, so I'm going to read from here. I'm very concerned. Since I've been in Lafayette, I've been attacked by 2 women, and the police called them ladies, using 4-letter words at me. My son's been spit at in the face by Melanie Clark. Now, I don't mind. I made a mistake at the end of September. I made a left-hand turn in front of a police officer. I paid my $167.50. First ticket I've got for 3 or 4 years. I'll say I was expecting a warning, but I got a ticket. I paid it. 3 days later, badge number 291, Mr. Roberts, let 2 women come into Trader Buck's and steal $161 and put it in their trunk, clearly in their trunk. Roberts went out there and found it. He made them return it to the store, and I have pictures. I have 2 witnesses. Why? Why do I have to pay a ticket for making a left-hand turn when these 2 thieves, and all these is women I'm talking about. Every incident I mentioned was women, minority. I don't care whether it's a woman or whether it's you, Ron Campbell. You can't come steal. So, in other words, what I'm saying is, Mr. Roberts, 291, the mayor and the council, censure his boss or his whatever, needs to address this fact, and they need to come out and need to talk to the clerks out at the Trader Buck and explain how they can get somebody. They told her not to come back, supposedly told them not to come back or there's going to be cops trespassing. The clerk asked them, said, can we get their names? No. I called down here, and the police department said there wasn't a report made out. Mr. Roberts has got something going, or there's something that I don't understand, and something stinks. It stinks about like Staley's. Now, I ain't saying all policemen are bad, but I'm saying Mr. Roberts needs to get his wings cut, because I've got reports from Gordman's, I got reports from Toys R Us, I got 3 reports from Trader Buck's that he turns thieves loose. Maybe he's a thief, I don't know, but I don't like thieves. And I think it's time for this city and the mayor to clean this up, because small crimes like shoplifting is where they start.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other members of the audience wish to address the council?
Perry Barbie, 3700 Redbud Avenue. I was absent from the October 19th meeting, and because I had to work late that night, and I just had a concern about the pay raise on that. I'm not going to go into detail because everybody knows how I feel. The only thing my personal feeling is, if the mayor got a 5% pay raise, I feel like the employee should got a 5%. That's all I'm going to say on that. I love how the city center looks out front where we don't have no parking. That looks a lot better than what I have ever thought it would look. Looks so great out front. And I hope everybody remembers all the veterans, and thank you for your service. I know Mr. Campbell served in the service for us, and I thank everybody who served in our service and don't forget to vote tomorrow.
Thank you, Perry.
Yep.
I will say that Columbus, Indiana was never attacked while I was in the service.
Well done, Mr. Kimball. Well done.
Any other comments? Being none, Mr. Heidi?
I move to adjourn. A second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.